In Season 6, Episode 5, Bran sees Leaf push a dragonglass dagger into the actor that plays the Night King. Bran then leaves the vision, looks at Leaf, and says,
"It was you. You made the White Walkers."
She agrees that the children created the White Walkers, and says that it was because the children were at war with the humans. But I think that this scene is a huge misdirect. The Night King is not a White Walker. Bran is mistaken, just like Westeros.org, the Game of Thrones wiki, and the majority of the Game of Thrones fan community. The children did create the first White Walkers, but Leaf was not in that vision, seeing Bran create the Night King. So she thinks that he saw a vision of her creating the first White Walkers from thousands of years before she created the Night King. Here's what I think really happened. The children created the White Walkers while they were at war with the humans. I'm not talking about the Night King, I'm talking about these guys. They created the White Walkers because humans had a significant numbers advantage. They created the White Walkers with magic, but not by shoving dragonglass in their chest. Eventually, the humans and the children created a pact and stopped fighting, but thousands of years later, the White Walkers returned. So the last hero eventually finds the children of the forest and has them convert him into the Night King in order to use his skin-changing powers to control the White Walkers. So instead of winning the war by fighting the White Walkers, you win by controlling them. The last hero became the Night King, traveled north to the lands of Always Winter, and the children and the humans then built a magical wall in case the White Walkers ever returned. So let's take a step back and look at why I think the Night King is not a White Walker. The main reason is because they were created differently. The Night King was created by having dragonglass shoved into his chest, whereas White Walkers are seemingly created by the Night King touching living babies and converting them into White Walkers. But he does it through magic, and I think that the original White Walkers were also created by magic, by the children. But White Walkers do not have dragonglass in their chest like the Night King does. So I do not look at him as a White Walker. He is something different, something special. A third species are the Whites. Whites are dead people that are reanimated, souls that are slaves to the Night King. So those are three different species, so to say, since they were created in three different ways. Now let's look at their powers. We know that the Night King can raise the dead, and he can skin change or control thousands of humans or other species at the same time. He has the green sight, meaning he can enter visions just like Bran. Side note, this is why I believe that the Night King is Macumber, since figuratively speaking, the world lives inside the eyes of this blue-eyed giant, the Night King. We do not know if the White Walkers have any of these powers or not. Now let's look at their vulnerabilities. Whites are vulnerable to fire, and White Walkers are vulnerable to dragonglass and Valyrian steel. But we do not yet know if wildfire or dragonfire will work on Whites or White Walkers. I think we'll find out soon in the show that they do work, since they are both magical. Dragonfire comes from dragons, and wildfire is made by pyromancers using magical spells. But we also do not know if dragonfire or wildfire or Valyrian steel or obsidian will hurt the Night King. Okay, so humor me and pretend that the Night King is not a White Walker, and let's get into that perspective and reanalyze this Night King scene. Bran comes out of the vision and says, "You created the White Walkers." And she says, "Yeah, we were at war." Keep in mind, Leaf was not in this dream with Bloodraven and Bran, so she doesn't know what he saw. Bran incorrectly believes that the Night King is a White Walker, so when he tells Leaf, "You created the White Walkers," she's like, "Yeah," because she assumes that Bran was having a different vision. She assumes that Bran was having a vision from a time 1,000 years before this vision. I propose that thousands of years before the Night King was created, the children of the forest were at war with the humans and created the White Walkers themselves with magic. But eventually, the humans and the children agreed to peace. Thousands of years later, the White Walkers returned and the Long Night happens. The last hero seeks out the children and is converted into the Night King in order to save mankind by skin-changing the White Walkers and bringing them back north to the lands of Always Winter. So maybe the Night King was the last hero. Maybe he was Azor Ahai, and this obsidian dagger was Lightbringer. Or maybe I'm a dumb